Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I have the Booktubers I Love tag. I was tagged by Alex over at the Bookish Report and this tag was created by Anthony Andrews from years ago, who I believe no longer has a channel. Indeed, I could not find the original video in which this was created. Firstly, I believe this is just a video in which I'm going to be shouting out booktubers and I probably won't go into any depth as to why I like these booktubers. Let's just start there, really. Let's start there. I don't throw the word love around lightly. It's not a word I particularly use much, as I keep trying to inform people I am an emotionless husk. I replaced my heart with a bread oven in 2007 and I have never looked back. Therefore, the idea of talking about people I love, booktubers I love, makes me feel somewhat nauseous, somewhat queasy. So let's just change this to the booktubers I appreciate tag. These are booktubers whose existence I appreciate on this mortal coil, and if they weren't part of it, there's the chance that I might be mildly sad about it. But I ain't throwing the word love around lightly. Suppose someone tried to kidnap one of these booktubers and extort money out of me, just because they'd seen I'd mentioned I'd loved them once. It ain't happening. It ain't happening. If you aren't following Alex for the Bookish Report, then you really should be going over to his channel and doing so. He's talking about, what does he call it? It's a certain type of horror. Is it gaslamp horror? I don't know about it. It's a genre I don't know about, but I do rather appreciate the way he talks about books on his channel. He's also from the north, which means that you should kind of go to him anyway, because we do things better in the north. And also, I do like saying, you know, he's kind of like proper northern. I'm too close to the Midlands to ever get involved in Yorkshire pudding. That's my sort of thing. The first question here is, who was the first booktuber you subscribed to? And for me, this was Ariel Bessette. I can't remember why, but I went in search of videos, book reviews on YouTube. I was only using YouTube for music videos at the time. Every Tuesday I'd watch Megan Tonjes for her, what did she call it at the time, where she'd cover songs on Tuesdays. And then I'd watch her other video about size and that sort of thing and body positivity. And then one day I happened to be looking for a book review of something. I think it was a book that I'd read and I wanted to find other people who were as enthusiastic about it as I was. And I discovered Ariel Bessette. And that must have been a very long time ago indeed. And then I lurked in the background of videos. It was very a YA-centric place at the time. And once I'd found her, I ended up subscribing to that entire network of people. I'm not necessarily subscribed to them anymore, as I did then move into more of like the adult reading based sphere of booktube. And I'm kind of glad that I waited until 2015 to start my channel, because I did lurk for years, not commenting or anything. And I'm glad I waited until I was reading more adult fiction as opposed to young adult fiction, because I feel like that transitional period would have been too much for everybody. 2. Who was the most recent booktuber you subscribed to? This is somebody called Bob the Bookerer. And I'm going to apologise now because I still haven't watched a single video by this person. I saw them recommended and that was enough for me to subscribe. And this happens often. I'll be recommended someone, subscribe, and then just fail to watch the videos. It's who I am. Right, then we have name 3 booktubers you love / want to give shout outs to. Well, firstly, we've talked about this word love already. Some people use it too easily. This is why there are so many teenage pregnancies nowadays. But the first person on here is Sophie of Redhead Reading. Why? Well, as I always say, I believe that Sophie was the first person to ever subscribe to me on Booktube. This might not be the case, but I do know that Sophie was one of the earliest people to ever subscribe to my channel, has always been supportive of me being on this platform, and because of that deserves a shout out. The next person is Matthew Sharoppa, who basically talks about books in a way that I wish I could talk about books. I always feel engaged when I'm watching his videos. I have bought books based on his recommendations before and they've never been misses. I think he's one of the most eloquent people discussing books on YouTube today and seems like an alright bloke, really. And then the next person is Olivia's Catastrophe, simply because Olivia Savannah of Olivia's Catastrophe is one of the most creative people on this platform making videos today. Her series where she reads series backwards, so she'll start the final book in the series and work to the first book, I just find rather thrilling because it's throwing convention out the window. And yeah, this is a person who is able to talk about books more eloquently than I could ever hope to do so. She reads a wide variety of books. She reads voraciously whilst also doing tons of other stuff as well. She's writing a novel in verse, which just astounds me anyway, because it's something that I know that I could never do, and that must take just so much thought about rhythm and everything that goes into poetry to then create a novel in verse as well. I am just so thrilled that Olivia is on Booktube and just look forward to seeing her career take off, because blooming heck, she is rather marvellous. Next we have, if you could meet one booktuber right now, who would that be? That would be Dane of Dane Reads. And it should come as no surprise, simply because Dane edited my most recent book, An Heir to Murder, and I think that maybe if you've hired somebody and you paid them a bit of money and they edited a book quite well for you, you owe him a drink. So, does Dane drink? Well, I know that he did drink last year on his live streams, so yeah, that's only if someone has... That's one of the only issues about Dane becoming vegan, is that you've got to be so careful about finding vegan beers now. You're okay if you get some alcohol from Europe because of the way they make it, but even as a vegetarian I have issues finding bitter now that's vegetarian, because they decide that they're going to use some sort of animal stomach. Anyway, Dane, when we're eventually able to meet and I don't mind travelling to the south, I might buy you a drink. 5. Who is your favourite YouTuber who is not a booktuber? Again, Megan Tonjes, because she's the only person who, since my teenage years, I've continued to follow. Always enjoyed her music and think she's an all-round brilliant human being, really. And then we have tag 14 booktubers. I didn't like the number 14. I didn't. So I just decided to go to 20. And even then, I didn't manage to fill this with all of the people whose channels I appreciate existing. So if you're not in this list, I apologise. But unfortunately, I decided to stop at 20 because I really did end up thinking and thinking and thinking of people. So, firstly we have Emily of Novel Novels. It should come as no surprise, really. In fact, this is going to be a lot of the usual suspects, and I'm not sorry about that. Booktube is one giant click. Oh, and then it's got little clicks that take off otherwise, and then that causes arguments with other people about being left out. But yeah, anyway, let's start again. Emily of Novel Novels, Emma of Emma Rosen Books, Charles of Books on Stereo, Katie of Books and Things, Amy of Zoe Beck, Steve Partridge, Doris of All the Books, Sarah of Hardcover Hearts, Brian of Bookish, Jason of Jason's Weird Reads, Sean of Sean the Book Maniac, Greg of Supposedly Fun, Kate of Kate Howe, Aoife of Words of Clover, Matthew of MTS Books, Mel of Mel's Bookland Adventures, Danny of Spinelli Speaks, Kat of Brews and Reviews, Ross of Scallydandling About the Books, and Steve Donahue. And let's not forget Mary Ann Moronsky. I know that takes us to 21, but she deserves a special mention as someone who started as a viewer and then ended up joining our folds. That was supposed to be tagging 14 booktubers. I wasn't tagging anybody. I don't want to tag anybody. If you want to do this video, then please feel free. But this video first came out about 2 years ago, and I only just got tagged. And I know that back in the day, I didn't want to do this tag anyway, because I despise that word love. I despise it with a fiery passion that burns into my soul. And I'm not going to deny that. Love is not an emotion that comes naturally to me. I start with disdain, then I kind of move into quarters of like acquaintances, and then eventually, like I say, I appreciate you being part of this mortal coil. Sometimes friendship does happen, but again, I'm very much the type of person who moves through life on their own. So I'm not really one for love. Ugh. Anyway, that's me done with that tag. If you fancy doing it, then do feel free to do so, but nobody's holding your arm above your back. Will you be going and subscribing to these booktubers now? Did I miss anybody out and you're feeling like taking an injunction out against me? Well, feel free. I ain't got no money, so do people need money to take an injunction out? I don't know, don't get kidnapped. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and until next time, that is all.